terribly afraid of Muslims that are Islamic. You disgusting creature. Don't ever show your face again. You call yourself a Muslim. Muslims are the most merciless. They are the most merciless. I say this, it hurts me to say this, but I wouldn't have said it if I haven't experienced it.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم الله ولي الذين آمنوا يخرجهم من الظلمات إلى النور والذين كفروا أولياؤهم الطاغوت يخرجونهم من النور إلى الظلمات أولئك أصحاب النار هم فيها خالدون رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين اللهم اجعلنا منهم ومن الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر آمين يا رب العالمين. Today's going to be an interesting, challenging session for me. I won't be talking to you about Ibrahim alayhi salam today. I wanted to have a direct conversation with many of you that follow my lectures, those of you that are attending here live, many of you have been following me for many, many years, going through the Quran with me as much as possible. And I just wanted to share some thoughts with you about what I have as a vision for myself and for this organization and what I hope to accomplish and where I think we need to be heading. And some of these thoughts are rather raw. This is unrehearsed and unprepared. So I wanted it to be something that comes from my heart and reaches your hearts. And that's my dua from the very beginning. Like the Arabs have a saying, مَا يَخْرُجُ مِنَ الْقَلْبِ يَصِلُ إِلَى الْقُلُوبِ. What comes out of the heart reaches the hearts. So that's fundamentally the intention today. The first thing I want to say is my own observations about the landscape of the ummah. Like, before we talk about giving da'wah to Islam to non-Muslims and the problems of kufr and of shirk and the outside world, right? And we're learning about that in the context of the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam. But we did, this started ringing in my head when I was giving you dars the other day about وَلَمْ يَلْبِسُوا إِيمَانَهُمْ بِظُلْمٍ, and they didn't cover up their own faith with wrongdoing, right? And I've seen some Allah has showed me some incredible things around the world. Like I have seen so much of the ummah, and I've seen such inspirational people. And I've also seen some trends that really deeply hurt myself. Like it's the same story over and over again. It comes in different ways, but across cultures and continents, we seem to have similar kinds of problems. And I wanted to highlight some of them, at least from my point of view. And you're, of course, absolutely free to disagree. The first of them is extremism. Now, in like CNN terms or BBC terms, extremism is about militant or war-oriented, jihadi kind of. They've taken the term jihad, which is a beautiful term, and turned it into something disgusting, and that kind of mindset. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the extremism within our religion that is actually much before anything is violent. There's a mindset that becomes extreme, and that mindset is deeply rooted in really a lot of lack of knowledge at how permissible our religion is on many issues, right? We've heard something growing up, and if somebody was raised in Pakistan or Bangladesh or India or wherever, and they heard something growing up about what Allah says or what He doesn't say, they believe that to be absolutely true, and I don't blame them, right? And the opposite is being heard by somebody raised in Algeria, and something completely different is being heard from the Imam from somewhere in Nigeria, and something else is being heard by people that are living in another part of the world. And they're all very convinced about their position because they were accustomed to hearing that over and over again. And instead of being understanding of how these conclusions came about and how did we become, how there was room in our religion to disagree about certain things. Some things we don't disagree on, right? Nobody's going to come out and say there's 4 rak'ahs in Maghrib. Nobody's going to do that. But there are other things in which there were multiple ways of looking at things. But that started disappearing. My way is iman, and everybody else's way is kufr, right? And there's this like extreme intolerance of someone who looks different from you, someone who
who expresses their deen different from you, someone who even prays slightly different than you must be just completely off. They must not know their Islam. That's why they are the way they are. And this extremism, it got so ugly. It's so ugly, and it creates so many cults. Like people become, you don't even see somebody else who says La ilaha illallah as a Muslim. First you see them, they are Muslim, but are they part of the elite club that I belong to? Right? So we form these different, Islam within Islam kind of thing. And so you start looking at people first from the lens of, are they in line with my view, or are they on the outside? And if they're on the outside, even though they're technically Muslim, pretty sure they're going to hell. This is the kind of mentality. Even if we don't say it, it's become commonplace. And you would think that I'm talking about something that some crazy people actually get on the pulpit and say these kinds of things. And there are plenty of those. But this is actually being thought about, and it's internalized by people that don't even express it. So this extremism became more and more commonplace. But then this gave birth to another extremism, in my view. And the other extremism is when you see that our deen, and the reason I wanted to talk about Ibrahim alayhi salam this year, and people assume, I know the story of Ibrahim alayhi salam, I have to talk about that, right? I haven't even gotten to the point where I think this is absolutely fundamentally needed. Ibrahim alayhi salam was concerned about all of humanity. He was concerned about people he's never met before. He's concerned about generations of people in the future across the world, and he wants something good for them, right? Now think how far we can come. We can claim to be from the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam, and forget about wanting good for someone else. We find joy at the destruction of another Muslim, right? That is different from us. That belongs to a different sect than ours, or that belongs to a different political ideology than ours, etc. We find some kind of internal yeah, got him. How far from the religion of Ibrahim alayhi salam is that? It's so. The other extreme that got developed is, well, I want to come to Islam, I want to come to this deen because it softens my heart, it brings me closer to Allah, it makes me love my messenger, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It makes me, we hear all the time, this is one ummah, but the more I come closer to the religious environment, the more I find this is so divisive and cultish and sectarian. It's so aggressive. I don't want anything to do with it. And so a lot of people over the last century, a lot of people practically wanted to stay away from anything that looks too religious. Muslims, they want to stay away from a masjid. They want to stay away from somebody who looks like they might be teaching about Islam, because they're probably extreme. They're probably very hateful, very judgmental people. There were these assumptions that were developed. These assumptions did not come out of the figment of somebody's imagination. A lot of people were very judgmental. A lot of people were very extreme. And they created that kind of hostile environment. And when they did that, there was a reaction, and so both sides got polarized. So if you go to any Muslim country and any Muslim community, even you could do that cross-sectional analysis even in a city like Dallas, right? You could find plenty of Muslims here. When you ask them about the masjid, the opinions you will hear, you guys know. You've been in those conversations already. All these people are like this. And you wonder, where are these thoughts coming from? Why are they so averse to anything that has to do with Islam? Because they've experienced something in Islam's name. They've experienced divisiveness and hatefulness. They've experienced cultish behavior, gang mentality. They've experienced these things in the name of Islam. So they're like, I just want to be good. I don't think this is any good, so I'm going to just take a step back, right? And so they pull away and they want to just do their own thing, And so that's another extreme that develops. And by the way, when you disconnect from any environment where you can learn about your religion, where you can find some spiritual growth, when you disconnect from that, well, you're also in Shaitan's playing field, because now you're by yourself. Right? So you're going to surround yourself with non-Muslim friends, or friends that are Muslim by name, but they don't really talk about Islam. That's your new criteria. So when you surround yourself in that environment, how well is your deen going to flourish anyway? You're going to start withdrawing from your deen. You're not going to be connected to Allah the way you used to be, And it's going to start hurting you spiritually. Even though it's helping you in other ways, it's starting to hurt you spiritually. So that's the other extreme. Then there, of course, something that I didn't realize how serious it was until I started traveling and meeting with people and just having conversations. Because a lot of my career was spent giving durus in masajid, right? And I'm like I am sitting here, I'm giving dars in a masjid and there are people in front of me, and I thought this is what the ummah looks like, right? And this is not what the ummah looks like. This is a subsection of a subsection of a subsection of what the ummah looks like. And things happened in my life, and I started kind of looking at the ummah differently and started experiencing different kinds of populations that I did not know existed. And I realized, subhanAllah, there are people that will walk by you, you would never even think they're Muslim, but they have a love of this deen in their heart. And they really want it. They really want it. They really wish they knew more. And it's burning them on the inside. But they are kind of the next generation. I just described to you a generation that kind of disconnected itself from the religious environment. This is a byproduct of that. Those people are so far removed that they have a love and a reverence and a desire to learn about the religion, but they're also terribly afraid of Muslims that are Islamic. They're terribly afraid. And genuinely, I mean, you think non-Muslims get scared when you board a plane and they look at your beard? Now, you haven't met those kinds of Muslims. They get scared. They get scared of other Muslims. And I actually, for the first time, learned to empathize with their fears, learned to understand where they're coming from, learned to engage them in conversation. And I found, subhanAllah, these people, they may not look like they're practicing Muslims. They may look like they're on the verge of kufr, but their hearts are in the right place, and they're just looking for that spark to connect them and to really bind them to Allah's deen. But on the outside, it looks like, oh, the ummah is secularizing, the ummah is liberalizing, the ummah is getting progressive, the ummah is becoming this, or we're leaving the appearance, women are leaving the hijab, men don't have the beards anymore, the masjids are empty, etc., etc., etc. Right? And that population of people, one of the things that shaitan gets them with is, because they don't look like your conventional religious Muslim, and because they're not in the best environment sometimes, they make mistakes. And when they make mistakes, then they want to figure out how to make tawbah, come back to Allah, right? You know what's traumatizing for a lot of them? The message they've heard. This is coming directly from so many hundreds, if not thousands of voices. The message they've heard growing up from the minbar of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you hear something over and over again, you get a summary in your head, right? The summary in the head, you know what it is? I'm probably going to hell no matter what I do. I'm probably not worthy of being saved. Because people that get saved are really, really good people. And they came from a long time ago. They're probably all already dead. So in this day and age, most people can't be any good. That those times are over. So there's a deep hopelessness inside of those hearts. So now I mentioned a few problems to you. There's an extremism. There's a response to that extremism. There's a silent ummah that's slowly fading away. They're hoping to cling on to their religion in some way, but there's nothing to cling on to hold on to. And it then comes along yet another narrative that takes hold. And that other narrative is, you know what? Maybe these people of knowledge, these sheikh types, these conservatives, etc., they're too hardlined. We need to rethink Islam. We need to, reinterpret the whole thing and figure out a way of making us feel better and not making us feel bad. So now a reinterpretation of Sharia, a reinterpretation of the Quran, a reinterpretation of its teachings, anything that doesn't fit with a modern mindset, anything that doesn't fit a progressive worldview, let's reinterpret it and reconfigure it so it jives with society better. It syncs better. It's more politically correct. It's more socially acceptable. And anything that doesn't, we should say, you know what, that doesn't make any sense anymore. Maybe Allah said that for that time, it's not for our time anymore, right? So that was a new wave. And that wave is no small wave, it's a massive wave, right? And the idea of not questioning conclusions because the evidences are weak. No, let's question conclusions because, it's just not convenient. I want a religion that's convenient, that I don't have to make any changes in myself, but I can feel good anyway, right? And that's another wave that came about. And so in the middle of all of these waves, I found myself like, there's a lot of assumptions among Muslims. When you're talking about something, oh, this one must belong to the extremist camp. Oh, if they don't make that assumption, oh, this one must belong to the progressive camp. Oh, this one must belong to this camp. So if you show mercy or empathy or understanding towards any one of those groups, then automatically others are ready to label you as a member of the opposite group, right? There's a paranoia. I need to figure out which gang he comes from, because I need to make sure I'm not falling on the long side of the border, you know? And you know what's the tragedy in all of that? Is that the actual beautiful teachings of our deen are being lost. Like Quran is being recited, in my view. Quran is being recited. People are learning and teaching. And there's a lot of good happening too. But for the most part, the spirit of our deen, the mentality that it's supposed to produce, the healing that it's supposed to have for the hearts, where is it to be found? Where is it? And for me, I realized that Allah Azza wa Jal, and I realized this actually after going through a lot of personal struggle. It didn't come to me easily. I've been studying obsessively. I've been studying the Quran since like 1999. And like it's a passion for my life. Like I don't know if I could do anything else with my life than study Allah's book the way that I do. And the all of that study, and you know what happened? I had to go through some really difficult times in my life, and I realized some things were always there in Allah's book, and I just couldn't see it. Like it was always there and I couldn't see it. I'll share one of those things with you today. He says, Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumati ila an-nur. Allah is the protective friend of those who had faith. He brings them out of darknesses into light. Contemplate that ayah for a moment. He brings them out of darknesses into light. You know, you would think that this ayah is they used to be kuffar, and He brought them into Islam. He brought them out of darknesses into light. But the ayah began, Allahu waliyyu alladhina amanu. Look at the siyagh, look at the tenses. Allah is the friend of those who already had faith. So the people being talked about already have faith. They've already had it. Then He uses the present tense and says, yukhrijuhum. He keeps bringing them out from darknesses into light. You know what that means? Even a believer can fall into darknesses. Even after having faith, you fall into darknesses. And it's not one kind of darkness. There could be different kinds of darknesses. There's a darkness that can fall for you because of the struggle you're having with your parents. Another one because of the struggle you're having with your children. Another one because of the struggle you have with your spouse. Another one because of the struggle you're having within yourself. Another one because of the struggle of your loneliness. There are different kinds of struggles that are happening inside people, and they never talk to anybody about it. You know that? They don't talk to anyone about it. It's too embarrassing to talk about it to somebody. So they live with that struggle inside of their head. They live with it inside of their head. And we don't even know. And you know what? Without that empathy, without me understanding that somebody's actually struggling. I met a young man, I hope he doesn't get embarrassed. I won't tell you his name or story. I met a young man at Fajr this morning who just wanted to talk to me, right? And people come and meet me all the time. They want to talk, it's fine. So he said, can I just have 10 minutes? And I was like, where are you coming from? And he said, well, he's coming from 30 miles away to Fajr, here. 30 miles away. I'm like, okay, just come sit down. You know, and he was feeling really bad for even asking me 5 minutes. I sit down with him in the auditorium. Not 2 minutes, I think the first 5 minutes, he had to gather himself because he couldn't stop his tears. For the first 5 minutes, he's just tears rolling down his eyes because of what he's feeling, because of what something he needed to get off his chest, and he couldn't trust anybody to say it to. He couldn't find somebody that, you know, if I tell somebody, I don't know how they're going to think, what they're going to think. SubhanAllah. I'm not here to tell you what he shared with me. That's between me and him. You know what the point is? There are a lot of people that are holding a lot of tears inside. They're just holding deep tears inside. And they need to hear that Allah cares, that Allah loves them, that Allah is not here to condemn them to hell. And that if they're wrong, Allah has a gentle, loving way of showing them how wrong that is, and they can change course. They can develop courage. They can find strength. And even if they're believers and they messed up, they really messed up. They fell to a place they never imagined they would fall there. They never imagined themselves failing in the way that they did. And people around them have written them off. People around them have given up. How could you fall like that? You disgusting creature. Don't ever show your face again. You call yourself a Muslim. Muslims are the most merciless. They are the most merciless. I say this, it hurts me to say this, but I wouldn't have said it if I haven't experienced it, right? And Allah put me in a certain place in my life where I had to really experience darkness, emotional, spiritual, personal darkness. I had to experience it in different kinds of ways before I could realize, man, Allah, maybe one of the wisdoms of me going through that is Allah Azza wa Jal shows me what a lot of people go through and you don't even see it. You don't even see what they're going through. Allahu waliyul ladhina amanu yukhrijuhum min adh-dhulumat ila an-nur. You become repentant. Allah says, when you recognize your mistake, make tawbah. When you recognize your mistake, Allah will elevate you back. He will lift you back. You know who doesn't let you get lifted back? Fellow believers, apparently. Fellow believers, right? And I realized that can't just be me. There's a lot of people like that. There's a lot of people struggling like that. I used to have this vision for what I wanted to do for Bayina. And then over the years, with my own personal journey, that vision changed. And I have a new vision, something else I want to do with this mission, this organization. And in a couple of minutes, I just want to put that in front of you, what I'd like to do. Because I have now, you can't go back, you can't unsee what you've seen, right? I genuinely believe that the way that we think about Islam, the average Muslim, the way that they think about Islam, which doesn't matter which category I mentioned that they belong to, they're really disconnected from the Quran. They're really, they're just the words of Allah, the counseling in it, the wisdom in it, the thought process in it, we're disconnected from it. The Quran is an artificial part, it's become an artificial part of Muslim life. Meaning its recitation is heard, some halaqat are attended, and even when you're studying the Quran, most of the time you're studying what other people said about the Quran, not the Quran itself, right? But the way that we're supposed to, our heart and our mind is supposed to engage Allah's book, it's not happening the way it should have been. I used to feel like that when I first studied the Quran. I was like, I was born a Muslim. How come I didn't know this stuff until I was 20 years old, 19 years old? How come I had no idea this stuff is in this book? And now, after 23, 24 years of study, I'm reading the book again. I'm like, how come I didn't see this for 20 years? How come I didn't see the empathy Allah shows? I didn't see the mercy Allah shows. I didn't see the wisdom Allah shows. About the same ayat I've said, so many times, and I didn't see it. Why? And because we actually became a people that are hard-hearted overall. Individuals are very soft-hearted, but overall, the attitude, the narrative of Islam became harsh. I would even argue merciless. And that needs to change. The Quran needs to be brought back. The Quran's analogy in the Quran itself, it describes itself by way of analogies, right? One of the analogies Allah gives for the Quran is that it's like the rain. That brings the soil back to life. What does the rain do to the soil? It makes it soft first. And it puts life into it, right? And then it gradually allows the seed to grow. It allows it to take its time, to have a process, right? So if we're going to bring the Quran back, we're going to give an individual time to grow, time to nurture. We're going to deal with them gently. We're not going to, somebody will come to me and say that they have a drug problem or they have an alcohol problem. My job isn't to just tell them it's haram. My job is to help them get out. Like step by step by step. For the Sahaba, Allah didn't just reveal alcohol as haram. He revealed step by step, like years before Allah said it's haram. Years. And at the end of it, He said, it's from the work of the devil. At the end. He could have said that in the beginning. It's not like it was the work of the angels before. It was always the work of the devil. رِجْسٌ مِّنْ عَمَلِ الشَّيْطَانِ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. Why is He saying that all the way in Surah Al-Ma'idah? All the way at the end of Revelation. At the end of the Seerah. Why not early on? Because even though those people are ready to go fight on the battlefield, they're ready to get killed for the sake of Islam, but some of them can't handle letting go of this darkness. Just because you're brave enough to even sacrifice your life doesn't mean you're strong enough to overcome that addiction. You see how nuanced and beautiful our religion is? So beautiful. But we lost that. So my vision, let me get to, in 2 minutes, my vision. I'm trying to make a commentary on the entire Quran.
I've already done a brief one, and I'm trying to do a detailed one. And the detailed one is 48 surahs are finished, and another, hopefully over the next decade, if Allah gives life, I can finish the rest, right? And along the way, I'm taking advantage of people that have dedicated their lives to Quran studies, scholars, experts, researchers, and taking advantage of that, and be able to just sit and contemplate every ayah, try to give it its due, and then to create a library of that material. Most of this stuff, 90% of this stuff is not on YouTube. I put all of that on Bayina TV. Why? Because I wanted people that are actually dedicated to this. YouTube, you'll find my khutbahs every week, you'll find these broadcasts, you find this stuff. But I wanted to build a library of people that just want to study Quran little by little every day. They just want an ayah. They want to, first engage with the word of Allah and then go deeper with the word of Allah. But my vision was something more. That's what I can do. But you know what I'm really hoping for? People learn, people get some inspiration, and they talk to their family. They talk to their friends. Then those friends talk to their friends. My vision overall, my long-term vision is mothers across the ummah should have an easy way of learning the Quran and teaching it to their own kids. Because I can guarantee you, if mothers were equipped with the Quran, some of you may have heard in Pakistan not too long ago, there was a riot, there was some, I believe a Sri Lankan fellow that was beat to death, right, in public, in a mob, motivated by Islam, apparently, motivated by Islam. If we had done our job equipping mothers with the ability to teach their children what the Quran actually says 20 years ago, 30 years ago, if we were doing our job, do you think a mob like that would ever happen? You think if we reached those villages and we empowered those parents to teach those children what Islam really is, they would ever become a mindless mob like that? We would ever end up in tragedies like that? We wouldn't. We wouldn't. We keep thinking about the ummah is in crisis, it's in political crisis, it's in social crisis, it's an economic crisis. It's in a Quran crisis. Personally, you and I can be in a Quran crisis. As an ummah, we're also in a Quran crisis. And we can't solve that for the ummah if we're not solving it for ourselves. That's actually my vision. My vision is I want to do something where even if I fall, I get back up, I find strength in the word of Allah, make the corrections I need to make and move forward. And at the same time, I identify others that may have fallen and say, get up. Here's the word of Allah. Here, get started. Learn a little bit. Gain some strength. Get your hope back. Get your head on straight. Correct your course. And we can. It's possible. And this is something I can do. I've said it multiple times before that if I'm able to do that for one person, but if one young man finds benefit in what I'm saying, and my plan is to share this story with you. I hope I can meet him. I'm going to call him out. I won't say his name because he's going to get embarrassed. This is what I'm going to end with. There's a young fellow that I was teaching Arabic to, Ahmed and Maryam here at the Dream program. It's being broadcast online. It's the Arabic of the Quran online course, and I get students that call in from different countries. They can come in on the live feed. Right? And the student comes on the live feed. Ustad, I've been studying, I'm making a lot of progress, I'm in France. I was like, wow, in France, cool. And he says, you won't believe where I am. I was like, where are you? He goes, I'm in my jail cell. I was like, what? You're in your jail cell? He turns the camera around and it's a prison cell. And he literally points the camera at the bars and there's people outside in the prison yard playing. And he came into prison because of a really hard life of crime and found Allah's book when he was in prison and started studying it. He didn't know any Arabic even. Started studying it, started learning, started a little bit of Arabic, started listening to lectures of the Quran. He transformed. They saw such a change. He was the most dangerous gangster in there. They saw such a change in him that they allowed him internet access and a phone. Here, you can study in your jail cell. They allowed him that. And you know what happened? 16, 17 guys in jail took Shahada because of him. And then on top of that, you know what else happened? Those guys, he fell in love with Surah Yasin. I had done some lectures on Surah Yasin some years ago, and they're on YouTube. He watched those lectures. He completely falls in love with this surah, right? So he memorized Surah Yasin. And then he has his jail buddies memorize Surah. Non-Muslims were memorizing Surah Yasin in 6 months.
And for each ayah they memorized or each phrase they memorized, they were actually watching those videos and he was translating them in French for them. So they knew the tafsir of each piece of the ayat while in prison. And then some of them went back and their entire families became Muslim through Surah Yasin. And he's just sitting there. I was like, can I have some time? My plan is to go meet him. I just need to give him a hug. You know? But you know what? That's a vision. My vision isn't, oh, I want to expand the campus or get a bit of, or, you know, do big documentaries or this or that. No, I just want to find people that have found inspiration in the Book of Allah, to capture their stories, to support them in whatever way I can, so they can inspire others with the Book of Allah, so they can inspire others with the Book of Allah. Imagine those young men that have changed inside of that prison. How many future, 100 years from now, how many generations will have changed because of that change? Just think about that. Just think about that for a moment, right? This is what I want to do. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And what I want from you guys, those of you that are consuming what I have to share, if you find benefit in it, of course what I say is, you know, maybe riddled with mistakes, and I'm always open to being corrected and discussing. That's besides the point. But what I want from you is to make a commitment to yourself. I want the light of the Quran in my heart. I want to be able to take advantage of this. I want to be able to learn it regularly, just a regular daily part of my life. You know, a lot of you don't know, I've done an entire translation of the Quran in video, brief commentary. It's already there on bayinatv.com. Sign up and get it. Just sign up, just start. Just do me a favor and start. And I've said it a million times. When I started this organization back then, and even now, I wanted to do something. I know I'm taking extra time. I swear to you, 5 minutes, no more than that, inshallah. I had a business plan. So I'm going to share in these last 5 minutes my business plan with you. My business plan in the beginning was, I want an organization that serves Allah's book that doesn't need fundraising. I don't want to ask for funds. And the reason I don't want to ask for funds is I found it embarrassing. I felt awkward when I would go to the masjid and I would go to some, you know, and the people are coming and they're asking and asking and asking and asking. And I'm like, this is Allah's work. Why? It's so embarrassing. You know, like I felt it was, and there's no shame in asking for the sake of Allah, not putting those organizations down. But I couldn't get myself to say, this is the mission, please donate generously. I don't want to do that. It just doesn't feel right. You know what? This is for those who believe in it. And for anybody who believes in a cause, they're not going to feel like they're spending, they're going to feel like they're investing into themselves. And I don't want somebody to give. I would want you to invest into yourself before you invest in somebody else. I'd like you to say, I'm committed to learning Quran. This is something I feel inside me. I benefited so much. I like this so much. You know, the part of the Islam of a believer, right, is we love for ourselves, you know, ma yuhibbu li nafsihi. You know, yuhibbu li akhi ma yuhibbu li nafsihi. He loves for his brother what he loves for himself. If you find real purpose, benefit, guidance in what you're getting, then you say, hey, I really want to give this gift to you. I want this to be with somebody else. You know, there are entire groups that are translating what we're doing, the commentary on the Quran and this stuff. They're translating into Bahasa, Indonesia, into Bangla, into Punjabi. There are groups that are doing that. And you know my vision? My vision is people, like if you're from Bangladesh, if you're from Pakistan, if you're from these countries, you know what? You should sponsor students from your countries. Because you should want to say, I want 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 20 million people from my country to know the Quran better in the next 10 years. I want to facilitate that for them. And I want them to know that in a way that softens their heart, that expands their mind. That's what I'd like to see. That's the goal that I have. I want to just I want to gain, those who can should give to those who can't. And if you can't, our subscription is $11 a month. I'm not even selling it to you. I don't care if you can't afford it. Go get a gift subscription. We'll give it to you. It doesn't matter. And our business analyst, my business analyst friends are like, if you give too many people a gift subscription, your servers, you're not going to be able to uphold the cost. You're going to go bankrupt. And I was like, don't worry about it. Those who believe in this will come through. We don't have to worry about that. We just have to worry about we didn't deprive anybody. We didn't close the door to anybody. Because on the one hand, people feel like Islamic education should be free. Nothing is ever free. Nothing is ever free. The lights that are on have a cost. The sheikh that's teaching has a family to pay for and all of that. That's not even the point. My point is it shouldn't be free. It shouldn't be free. This is the highest form of education. It should be accessible, it should be affordable, and whatever revenues are generated should be used to spread this even further, to make this, we should be, Quran organizations should be more powerful than Netflix. Why not? Why not? Why don't we have that mentality? We should be more influential. You know, they can produce dirty materials that the world will say, hey, you're producing things that are graphic content involving children. And they can say, yeah, so what? We're going to increase our subscription price. And their shares will go up instead of going down. They can do that, right? We need to think big. On the one hand, I want to think about myself. And on the other, I need to think big about what vision do I want to give to the world? What is it that I want to accomplish for the world? And the best empowerment we can do, I think, alhamdulillah, we built enough buildings. It's time to build people. It's time to empower people with the word of Allah. And that's my appeal to you. That's genuinely what I feel from my heart, is you don't know where the next inspiration will come from. We don't know if it's going to come from a jail cell, if it's come from a basement somewhere. It's going to be the bouncer at a club that his free time is reading the Fatiha and he's like, I got to make a change. You don't know where it's going to come from. That's up to Allah Azza wa Jalla. That's up to Allah. Our job is to just support it. So I pray that I'm able to find like-minded and like-hearted folks that believe in this vision and want to be a part of it. Jazakumullahu khairan for listening patiently. I know I took a lot of time today. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim.